Shavua Tov, a blessed new week to all. Once again, I'll wait for myself to pop up on the monitor. I've got a cup of tea. Oh, looking forward to a new week. Looking forward to a good week. Okay, I'm live. It's the Nazarite, bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. I have popped up on the screen, and that means that we are ready. Good. So, as I was saying, hello Yodiyahu, hello Robert, others who might be on right now, hi there, and hello. Shalom Robert. So I'm going to continue. Wait, so Robert has a question in the Q&A. Let's start with that, because why not? I was reading, let's select it, and then go back here. Okay. Says Robert, I was reading the Brit HaChadashah, the Christian Bible, the New Testament, and it talked about a gate in the temple called Beautiful. Can you expand on that gate and why it was called that? Well, I don't know offhand which one is referenced there. I'm trying to think. I don't know which gate was called Beautiful. Right? And these are not the gates of current modern-day Jerusalem. You're talking about a gate in the temple. So the temple had what's called pishpeshim, like little doorways. And a gate in the temple called Beautiful. I don't know. Could you give me more? Jaffa Gate. Oh, okay. Shar Yafo. So, there's, in context of the temple, I'm, to my shame, I don't know which gate in the temple, which pishpesh was called Shar Yafo. I'm trying to remember, since there is a current modern day Shar Yafo, which is one of the gates of the old city of Jerusalem. Jaffa, Yafeh, Yafo, right, means beautiful. Thank you. That makes sense. But, insofar as the gates of the temple, not the old city, the gates of the temple are concerned, unfortunately, I can't think of one which had that name. So it could very well be that I'd read it. If I did, it was just that once. And this is why you need to go over things again and again. Right? Hadran alach ve'alach hadran. We will go through you again, and you will go through us. When people finish a tractate, a masechet, in the Talmud and possibly others, but mainly in the Talmud, or maybe the Mishnah as well, there is a small sort of blessing that is said, and it starts with Hadran alach. We will repeat you again, or again we will repeat you. And it says that somebody who has learned something but has not repeated it, it's as if he didn't learn it. In other words, the Torah is telling us, nudging us in the way that says repeat, which is why the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, many times they're like, repeat this, do this, teach it to your children. And, right, so the current gates are not from the old city, are the old city. The current gates, says Yodiyahu, are not the old city from the temple, correct. Hello, is it Marina or Marina? I'm guessing it's Marina. Hello, Marina. Hi there. Shalom, shalom to you. Wait, hang on a second. I know that I was in the middle of a thought there. It just popped out of my head. This live stream. I love it. Okay, Taylor 26. Maybe it'll pop back into my head. Taylor 26 says, do you think the Dome of the Rock mosque was put there by God's intervention through Islam? How can it be just coincidence? So I don't know God. All I know is how God reveals himself to me. And I don't know enough about Islam to have anything to say regarding God intervening through Islam. I know that God has worked through different messengers and lower deities, if you will, or ones that others, cultures, other faiths considered low deities, right? The different pantheons. God's intervention, I know nothing of God intervening. I know what the Torah teaches, and I know the teachings of the Tree of Life in the sense of that they are revelations of God. So the intervention would be done by a left and right hand coming together and someone sometimes has more force than the other, and the right one is overpowering the left, or the left is overpowering the right, or an intervention which is right down the middle. So do I think it was put there by God's intervention? I wouldn't be able to say. I wouldn't be able to say if it's God intervening or not through Islam, because I don't know enough about it. Hi, I'm from India, says Papu. Hello, Papu. Namaste. Yodidyal said maybe some are from Herod's time. Some are from Herod's time. I mean, I know that we have, right? Whoever didn't see the building of Herod has not seen a beautiful building, they say in the Talmud. Muhammad Ziani, free Palestine. Indeed, free them from those bastards Hamas. Free Palestine. Free the Gazans. Free the people of the West Bank as well from terror. Yodidyal said white lives matter too. Did I miss something? When did we get to white lives don't matter? But okay, as you see it, go for it. The scripture was Acts 3:2. Okay, so I won't look that up right now. Kunal, G, from this world, free them from this world. Is that what you're saying? Free Palestine, okay, give me a slice, says B-Bob. Hi, B-Bob. Hi, Kunal. And Muhammad is simply doing what what he does best. There are people here spreading the good news, as they say, Christians and others, and there are people who are pro-Palestine or some pro-terrorism, who want to spread their good news. So, all right. Taylor says, perhaps God doesn't want animal sacrifices due to all the baseless hatred during the Second Temple era. None of the Jewish groups could agree how to do the temple sacrifices, hence exile until Mashiach. Well, I don't know if that's what it actually came down to. I don't know if that was the straw that broke the camel's back. They say the straw that broke the camel's back was the baseless hatred and also the false piety of, who was it? One of the sages of the Mishnah. What was it? Anyway, false piety. The different attributes. Yes, and baseless hatred for sure. That was definitely the main cause. Now, animal sacrifices became a thing. Right, Cain and Abel did it, but later on, animal sacrifices and animal consumption in the story of Noah after the flood. Until then, you could definitely make the argument that the world was vegan, and at the very least, human race was vegan. And after the flood and all of that, God's like, okay, you can eat animals. You act like animals, eat animals. Elevate them, do what you can with this creation. Now, as for animal sacrifices to God, I'm of the opinion that would be very emblematic, symbolic of that baseless hatred that went on there at the time and the different sects fighting each other. The people who brought the sacrifices of these animals, and no judgment, I'm sitting here in the comfort of my own home 2,000 nearly years after the destruction, but nevertheless, to look at an animal sacrifice and how it's carried out, the way that the priests are standing, the breathing, the contemplation of the holy and sacred names by the priests and the one who brought the offering. Everything there is so precise, everything there is so on point, and it's supposed to channel certain energies into you. More than that should be me getting cut and bled. More than that. Pardon? Oh. Is that something needs to happen to me on a personal level. A channel opens up. There's a divine revelation that comes through with that union of the fire and the flesh and everything that it entails, the grains, the oil, the animal sacrifice. It's supposed to change you. Every sacrifice, every offering, ideally, is supposed to change you and cause you to become closer to yourself, consequently closer to God. Consequently closer to God. To see a living thing be killed, it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. Certainly not in the context of the temple and whatever it is, whether it was an offering of gratitude or atonement or, you broke a vow, whatever the case may be. The baseless hatred during the Second Temple era. None of the Jewish groups could agree, right, how to carry out the worship. I know that the Tzdokim and Chazal, our sages, had differences of opinion so far that They had to basically make the high priest swear that he is not a tzedukah, that he will not change anything from what he was instructed to do right before the holiday of atonement. High priests would go into the inner sanctum, the holiest of holies, Kodesh HaKodashim, into the Ark of the Covenant, or in the second temple to the stone of foundation, and they would die there because they were not worthy and they didn't do things properly. None of the Jewish groups could agree. And the noble and righteous thing to do really was to be able somehow to see past the sacrifices, past the temple, and become one once again. But the differences caused so much infighting, so much strife, that eventually Rome burned down the temple in 70 AD. What diet do you follow as a Nazarite? Hi, Jules. The Nazariteship mandates no specific diet, other than abstain from grapes and anything grape-related. The fruit of the vine is prohibited, and anything that is of it, right, derivatives of it, be it wine vinegar or some kind of alcohol or strong drink that has wine or grapes in it, grape juice, raisins. I myself abstain from animal products altogether, and that came sort of along with the Nazarite vow. Since the vow I took is a Samson vow, and I'm allowed to be defiled by the dead, I still want dead corpses, human corpses. I wanted still to give that a kind of physical manifestation in my life, and instead of abstaining from death, I decided to embrace life. I was a vegetarian before that, and I became vegan to embrace life more so, to the degree that I can. So that's the diet I follow, and I suppose I follow it as a Nazarite because while it's not part of the actual vow, it is something like an addendum. Why Israel says, fact, not fiction, Islam is the only religion on earth, from the beginning of time to the end of time, Judgment Day, everything else is a man-made religion. Well, I am of the opinion, humble opinion, that all religions are man-made, that spirituality is a connection. And the Hebrew faith through Torah and commandments seeks to take, right, certainly the rabbinic Judaism, right, that became the mainstream Judaism after the destruction of the Second Temple, though some might disagree. But for all intents and purposes, rabbinic Judaism is the one that flourished and survived a lot more than the others comparatively, if it's just pure numbers, I think. So I think that all religions in that sense are man-made, but divinity and the image of God that we humans are strive to represent, ought to represent, could represent, and I'm talking to myself here. Islam is the only religion. Now, if we say that Islam means submission, then I agree. Submission is the only religion on earth, and we only differ on how to go about it. We differ on the prophets, but eventually we, I think, all do want to submit to the will of God. It's all a question of how we interpret that will. And one might say, no, it's already been interpreted. You don't have to bother. I personally came to a point in my life where I was like, no, I think I need to bother. I think I need to check that out. From the beginning of time to the end of time. Well, if Sneezer were here, and he may be here, I'm going through the chat very slowly, but he'd have a lot to say about that. From beginning to the end of time. Judgment Day. Right. So Judgment Day is an interesting concept because in the Hebrew faith, there's a judgment that will come, like we are, right? Our sages teach us that the negative things, the prophecies of exile, destruction, and woe and calamity, don't necessarily need to take place. But ones that are of solace and of comfort and of redemption and of liberation of the spirit, those will come true by definition of their leaning towards the good. So Judgment Day is something that certain prophets allude to, and definitely in the external teachings. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, let's say, you put the sign of poison, of death, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be death. Judgment Day is when we perhaps take another step to partake of the fruit of the tree of life. Kyle Govender. Hi, Kyle. Good to see you again. He says, just how secular is Israel? It is clearly the most secular country in the region, but just how much? It depends how you look at it. Certain things are reserved for the religious courts, the rabbinic court, the Muslim courts, and just how secular it is. In the Declaration, in the Scroll of Independence, right, we are meant to be a Jewish democratic state. And I've had my reservations regarding whether or not that can actually take place. But that's I've mentioned it previously in previous live streams. How secular is Israel? Pretty secular, mighty secular. But even in this secular age, in these secular people, the Jewish or Hebrew, right, roots and tradition run very, very deep. So how secular? Growing up in Jerusalem, which is more secular than many other cities, not the most, which is more religious, than many other cities. I wouldn't be able, what are the parameters by which we judge the question? It's pretty secular. The majority of the people are secular Israelis. Robert says, I also read the gate of the temple called Beautiful was massive and magnificent. That's nice. Exactly, says Kunal. Yodidiau, hey, how do you feel about the name Mordechai? What does that mean in Hebrew? Well, Mordechai, it's let's put it this way. It has roots in Aramaic, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mor is myrrh. Dechai means pure in Aramaic, like Dachia, Dalet Chaf Yod Aleph. רק ישראל, למה להפריע? באמת, למה להפריע? בהחלט, למה להפריע? So how do I feel about the name Mordechai? So what it means in Hebrew, Aramaic Hebrew is, or at least there's like a hint, it alludes to pure myrrh. But I must say, I don't know what it means. I don't know what Mordechai means. Offhand. Now it was a Persian name, right? He also had a different name, if I'm not mistaken. Mordechai Mardach, right? So Mardach, Mardach, there was Merodach. Merodach, Baladin ben Baladin was the king of Babylon at the time of Chizkiyahu when he was sick, but then he became better. The king of Babylon, if I'm not mistaken, Merodach, or is that Evil Merodach? I'm confusing my Merodachs. Anyway, a king of Babylon. So Persia came after Babylon, right? They kicked their butts, if I'm not mistaken, and Mordechai was there. He was exiled with Yechoniah by Babylon, but he ended up under the realm in the kingdom of Xerxes, as he is known. And some say that he's a Darius the second or third, Achashverosh in Hebrew, Xerxes, I think, or one of the Dariuses, or both. Right? It's like the Egyptians were Pharaoh, but they had their own name. Yodidiah says to Robert, Jaffa Gate means beautiful gate, but it's not the old gate from 2,000 years ago. No, right, it's not that one. Kyle Govender said, in order to free Palestine from Hamas, it needs a solid dose of old-fashioned colonialism and a major forced cultural change like what happened to past World War II Germany, Japan. I agree that people here and there need to be de-radicalized. And a solid dose of old-fashioned colonialism, and unfortunately, once again, I reveal my ignorance in not knowing the ins and outs of colonialism. Some people might scoff and say, well, Jonathan, you dumbass, you're a colonial settler yourself, and you don't even know it. Paka! Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, some people might still say that. Old-fashioned colonialism. So, are we talking about Rome? Are we talking about Britain? Are we talking about Portugal, Spain, France? When are we talking? I said Britain second.
How about Spain or England?
So major forced cultural change. I agree. Change needs to come to both peoples. This war is just Muhammad says Netanyahu monster, right? So referencing Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. And once again, I pull my card and say politics is a dirty, dirty game, which is why I haven't voted in almost 20 years, but I will vote in the next election whenever it is. As somebody who didn't vote, I feel I have every right to say whatever I want to say, but I don't know anything about politics. As for being a monster, I think we are all capable of being monsters. I think Netanyahu is doing what he is doing to defend Israel. And while I'm not justifying everything the army does by a long shot, and not everything the government does by a long shot, he is the elected official of this, right? The elected prime minister. And it's still a democracy. And so I need to respect that. It just means that come time of election, I would rather he didn't continue. What is it, my dear?
Spain or England?
Not now, my dear. Robert says to Yodi, Toda. Taylor says, have you read the book of Yashar? It's a pretty shocking book. So there are several books of Yashar. Just like there are several books of Hanoch, if I'm not mistaken. It depends on the time when... Anyway, there are a few. So I think I did a long time ago. I'm not sure if it was... It wasn't a translation. It was in Hebrew. But I don't know which one it was. It was a while ago. And I remember it had sort of historical elements and kind of midrashic elements. And I don't recall if it's one of the Sfarim Chitzonim, the external books that didn't make it into the Hebrew Bible. I don't recall, but there are a few of them, as far as I know. And I can't tell you which one I read, unfortunately, in the context. Ariel, hi Ariel, good to see you, man. From what I gather, Mordechai was called Marduk in Babylon. Assuming it's not archaeological propaganda, it does make sense. And I know that Marduk was one of the old-time Mesopotamian gods. Mesopotamia, Babylon, right? So it makes a lot of sense that it would come from there. Right? Merodach, Mordechai, Marduk. Ariel says several different regional names for Esther. That's right, Esther. There's also, right, Ishtar. There's that whole thing. Can you eat grape leaving? So yes, the leaves are allowed. I know many people roll them in rice, and I have tasted it in the past, but it's just not my thing. I'm not really into it. But yes, you can eat the leaves. And I did a video on this a while ago on how it's the fruit of the grapes which is forbidden and all of its derivatives. But the root, the leaves, everything that is there in order to support that final product, the fruit, is permissible. The fruit itself is not. Okay, so yes, you can. Stop genocide. I agree. People should stop genocide wherever it's taking place, because you can disagree with a people and you can disagree with a government, but genocide means none of these people have any right to exist. I am the judge of their existence and I will exterminate them. And that's no good. And the only time where there is genocide, at least in the Hebrew Bible, as far as I know, that we perpetrate is conquering the land of Canaan. Speaking of genocides. Nice. Well done. To your good health. Rabriot. Sahtak. Makes sense. Very good. Thank you, says Jules. I'm glad to be of service. Take everything I say, every single thing I've ever said, take it with a grain of hummus. You know what I'm saying? And do your own research and see what's what. Muslims, real self-centered bunch. Well, you could say that about humans. I think a great deal of us are self-centered. I know I'm self-centered. Look at what I'm doing right now. Why, I'm putting myself in the center of your life at this moment. Cheers. Okay. Bebop says, oh, come on, Allah was Muhammad's slave. Allah was Muhammad's slave. I wonder about that. Could you elaborate? Because I don't know anything about the Quran or the Hadith or Muslim practices. My views of Islam have been warped by war, hatred, terrorism, and buses blowing up and other fun stuff, so I can't say anything about Islam. My heart goes out to the Druze, as does mine. I've been fortunate enough to serve with Druze in mandatory service and in the reserves. And yeah, that's... Every child that dies, right, in Gaza or here, is it's a world entire. I mean, definitely a child. Others, of course, are as well, but a child. My heart goes out indeed. Ariel says Hebrew calendar is not very Jewish in my opinion, but the way it is observed may well be perfect. Yes, it did go through some changes, and I think that part of what we are meant to do, right, Kazeh Re'eh Kadesh. It says in the Midrash that God took Moses right out into the field, showed in the wilderness, showed him the moon, and said, when it's like this, then you will sanctify it, right? The new moon, the new month. It's up to us to sanctify the different times. It is up to us to take that dimension of time and the dimensions of space and that spiritual capacity and bring them all together. That's what Kiddush is about, right? Sanctifying, making a blessing over wine usually, or I do it with bread. Because it might not be very Jewish or it might not be very Hebrew, Consider the names that we have for the months. It's not the biblical Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, first, second, third. Sorry about that. It's the what is it? The Akkadian, Babylonian names. Right, the names of the months. Okay, Taylor says, why exactly do you not like Christianity? I personally can't see the full point that Jesus was trying to make. The parables seem too mysterious. I don't know when I've said I don't like Christianity. I don't follow Christianity, and I'm not a follower of Yeshua, Jesus. Why exactly do you not like Christianity? If I had to give a reason, it's because, right, Rome, I know it wasn't Christian at the time, but it's considered, according to rabbinic tradition, to be Romi, Edom, Esau. Christianity being closer to Esav. The burning of the temple. I know that the kingdom of Judah, right, that Judea rebelled against the Roman Empire, but, the destruction of the temple, pogroms, persecution, inquisition, the Hebrews have definitely not been the only peoples who have suffered. But in reading some of my history, that's why I don't like it. And even though you can say Christianity has come a long way since, it doesn't go with those practices anymore. I feel, and this is only from news and stuff, so it might be total propaganda, that it doesn't take much to inspire, ignite, elicit Jew hatred, Hebrew hatred in the people, let's say, of Europe, mainly Christians. Why do I not like Christianity? If we're talking about, like, in a very plain sense, if I would say I don't like it, it's because, let's take it, all right, I read the New Testament once. I got into the gospel, that was cool, but I did not get into any of the other books. And that's what I'm talking about, because while you can consider gospel to be the time of Jesus, of Yeshua, if you do go with that, all the other books are about, right, written by people later. I know the gospels were too, but periodically, it happened later. And they're constructed differently. And that's when it becomes Christianity. Before that, it would mean believing that somebody at the time of the Second Temple was Messiah, was an anointed king, or was to be an anointed king. I'm willing to go with that. I say this many times. It could very well be that if I lived at the time of the Second Temple, I would follow him around. But Christianity, the churches, the way it broke up later, the way that I see it manifested in the different letters and in the Acts, and that's when it veers away from Torah and veers away from commandments and changes them to such a degree that there's a clear break as far as I'm concerned. And that's, for me, right, the creation, that's the split. So I'm not going to say I don't like Christianity. I don't know what that means. I don't like it. I don't follow it, but I do understand those who do. I definitely understand those who do. I generally can't see the full point that Jesus was trying to make. The parables that seem too mysterious. Well, look, he summed it up best, right? Love your neighbor, love your God, or the other way around. Muhammad, hey guys, can you keep it down, please? Can you keep it down, please? Thank you. The Quran has many contradictions. It says Jesus loves you. Hello, Jesus loves you. Hi there. Good to see you. Muhammad has many flags of Palestine, which came about in the 60s. Before that, there was no flag. Curious. Ariel says, sure you know better than me, Odidiao. Sunni Muslims are good, but Shia Muslims are bad, says Taylor. I don't know enough about the split. I know it happened, 2 generations after Muhammad? What is it, my love?
Nothing.
Oh, nothing, okay. As a Nazarite, do you study in yeshiva? So, I studied in yeshiva from 17 until 20. And from 22 to 23. So, I don't currently study in yeshiva. I do my studies on my own, basically. I still maintain that certain studies should definitely be, at least in the beginning, with a master. In fact, Torah, by and large, you could definitely use a master. But no, I don't study in yeshiva currently, but I did, and it has definitely shaped me, for better or worse. Time in Orthodox Judaism in Jerusalem, time in yeshiva in Safed, 2 very holy cities, and it definitely shaped me for better or worse. But I try to study every day. I don't always do, but Maybe I do. Prayer is a type of study as far as I'm concerned, studying oneself. So yes, I do study every day. Draco says, as a yes, of course. As a Christian, I recognize Islam as a satanic cult. Destruction and hate follow everywhere it goes. Well, I don't know about that since I'm not a Christian, and I do know that when you say Satan and when I say Satan, we may mean different things. So, hate, like I said, I unfortunately my views on Islam have been shaped by living in Jerusalem all my life, pretty much. So, I don't speak of Islam because I don't know it. I only know how it has revealed itself to me, and it's been most horrible, thank you very much. But I definitely agree that you can say that they are Islamists, but not Muslims. Enav Kedim, see, because there's a wine called Kedim. Enav Kedim, hello, 2016, only Israel. Am Yisrael Chai. Enav Kedim means Eastern grape. And how lovely that on this Hebrew Nazarite channel, somebody is named Grape. No, Enav is a proper Hebrew name. Truth, hello Truth, good to see you again. A real followers of Torah or obedient to God will accept Prophet Muhammad as the last and final prophet of God. Okay, let's put it this way. At no point does the Torah say that the spirit of prophecy will have an end. So, if I'm really following Torah, I'm inclined to say that the spirit of prophecy, higher and lower alike, is always within the grasp and potential of humanity. Meaning that you could argue that there won't be a kind of prophet by which to write a book, but definitely there are still prophets in the nations and in Israel, as I see it. And I don't know how you reconcile the Prophet Muhammad being anything last and final with the Torah. Could you give me a source in the Torah where it says that prophecy will be done? Free Palestine. Agreed. Free them from those dirtbag a-hole terrorists. Enough. Free your mom. Free Palestine once again. Should I be reading all of these? I don't think so. Worshipping Muhammad is idolatry, says George Brooks. Hey, George, nice to see you. Well, it depends on the type of worship. From what I do know, Muslims do not consider Muhammad a deity, but he is the last and final prophet and the conveyor of the final word of God. As such, they worship the teachings, and they don't worship him as an idol, right? As a false god, as a lower god, as a god incarnate. So I don't think that worshiping Muhammad is idolatry, and this is actually a point of controversy among halachic scholars and rulers. Israel invaders, said Muhammad. Incorrect. You cannot be an invader in your own land. So I don't think so, man. I don't think so. Free Palestine from Zionimals. What are Zionimals? Muhammad Hachamud. Muhammad, the cute one. Or cute Muhammad. Yes, Palestine needs to be free of Hamas, free from war. Hamas, if you're watching, free the hostages, put down your weapons, surrender, and the war is over tomorrow, and we can go back to negotiating. What's a Palestine, asks George Brooks. A good question. Why, it's a name given even before the Romans, but definitely at the time of the Romans, to Syria, Palestina, a province. And it was given that name in order to, well, poke fun and humiliate the Jews and the kingdom of Judah. So, as a noun, though, a Palestine, I don't know what a Palestine is, but the British Mandate of Palestine ended, and so, right, we are all Palestinians. Boy, Europe seems pretty tired of Islamic integration. Have you seen the protests? No, I have not, unfortunately, or fortunately. I know that, look, I have nothing to say on immigration policy because I wouldn't even begin to know what it means to have an opinion about immigration policy. But I think that some countries may have not vetted their immigration properly. I think ideally you want to bring people who will integrate at least to some degree. But there are people who come to these European countries, from what I've gathered, who are not interested in integrating in the least. And then they go about trying to make that country to which they arrived, right, in the likeness of the very country that they were fleeing or which they left to find a better future, presumably. Ariel, stop discriminating. We all want to be free. Hey, that is correct. Right, Eved Adonai levado chofshi. The slave of Adonai, the slave of God, he alone is free, said Rabbi Yehuda Levi. Free Iran. Yes, free the people of Persia. Free Iran from their religious extremists. Brent Richards. Hey, Brent. It's like Israel has kept a zoo full of people who make muscles and bombs, rape and desecrate. Well, I don't know what you mean by kept a zoo, Brent. Nice to see you, by the way, if I didn't say it. No, I think I did. Either way, look, people make these comparisons to an open-air prison, a concentration camp. It is one of the more, by population, by geography, whatever it is a pretty dense population. Nobody's arguing with that. The humanitarian area is even probably more overpopulated and dense. It's the indoctrination and the radicalization of the people of Gaza, the innocent ones. That, I believe, is what is causing this. The silent majority of Muslims around the world and those in Gaza. I know some are speaking up against Hamas. I don't think, in the past at least, there has not been a great outcry from Muslim organizations or whatnot, or different leagues of nations. Kept a zoo is a very crude way of putting it. We are defending our borders, as unclear as they may be. Can I have some space? Thanks, guys. But yes, I have been in Israel pretty much my whole life. It's been a real terrorism shit show. And people might claim that it's all on Israel, to which I say, bollocks. There were attacks on Jews way before Israel was a state. The history is written. I hate it that it's the case that when you say muscles and bombs, rape and desecration, I go, that's pretty much what we've seen at the hands of the local Islam, the radical Islam. But kept a zoo, it doesn't hit me right. I'm sorry, Brent. Now, how do you mean it? In the sense of what? Free the chickens, says Yodidio. Guys, this is getting a bit too dark. It's Sunday evening. Kyle says, in regard to an example of old-fashioned colonialism, I would use Britain and France as an example, but Rome is the most successful example. Okay. Now, who is it that you want to colonize Gaza? Who is it that you want to, what force, what power, what nation, what people would you want to see there? I'm curious. If you're talking about colonialism, who is going to be colonizing that area? According to you, Kyle, I'm interested. Islam is the cause for airport security, twin towers, and terrorists. Well, not exactly. Islam is the cause for Muslim terrorists, but there have been many terrorists of other faiths and cultures and ways of life. Free Palestine from Zionimals. Now, good people, you might notice that I'm not blocking these spammers. And because I don't block, I only block unless there's absolutely no choice. Now, in this case, taking Truth, for example, he, she, or if it's a bot, they seem to be under the impression that if they spam this channel, if they spread their message digitally, if they keep repeating it, maybe something will happen. It could be they are correct. It could be that there are fine, impressionable young minds. Why? Somehow they ended up on this channel, and they're seeing what Truth is saying, and they go, you know what? Damn it. Free Palestine from Zionimals. At which point, if they have any sense, they would do some research. And then they will discover the narrative that is Israel, and the narrative that is Palestine, and the narrative that is, that's okay, that is the state of Israel, ancient and modern, as a kingship, right, and as a state, a democratic country. And they will hopefully make up their own minds. As for Zionists being animals, we're all animals, mate. We are social animals. We have the capacity for divinity. We have the capacity to be that image of God. Definitely each and every one of us. So if you say animal, I say, okay, but I'll say it the way King David says it, right? Behemoth hayiti imach. I was like cattle before you. Right, talking to God. As if I don't know. No awareness. To be like that in front of God. And Zion, as far as I'm concerned, is the place I call home. So, right, it's also a state of mind, it's also a physical, geographical location. To free Palestine from Zionimals, okay, tell you what, you want to free Palestine from Zionimals? Zion is a very ancient name, but it's said that when we finally come together, when there is finally peace, Jerusalem will get a new name. El-Uds, El-Quds, Ilya Capitolina, whatever you want to call her. Yerushalayim, Yerushalem, Yevus, Yefenof, Mesos Kol Haaretz. Many, many names. Jerusalem has 70 names according to the Bible, according to Midrash, based on the Bible. So if you want Palestine, or the geographical area that they used to call Palestine, or the current day Palestine, or Palestinians by and large, if you want to be free of Zionimals, then let us elevate ourselves. Zion will have a new name. And let us elevate ourselves so we will not simply be animals, talking, walking animals. No, we will be higher than that. We will be speaking, we will partake of the tree of life together, and be free of death and evil, and finally get into that Edenic Sabbath. But to spam like this, you're achieving literally nothing, I think. That's just me. Robert says, hit the like button. Obviously, you don't have to. It's nice to get a like. It's nice to not. Israel sycophant, says Mohammed Ziani. Well, call me a sycophant if you will. However, I think that you too would defend your home. But like I said in previous broadcasts, if there will be real peace, actual peace, I wouldn't mind moving. I wouldn't mind it. Real peace. And a guarantee that the Hebrews will be able to carry out their shtick in peace. Robert says, actually, the Torah says to stay away from the husk of the grape. It's still the fruit. It's still the fruit, right? Mechartzanim ve'ad zag. Right? The pits, the husk. Free the mosquitoes. Oh, no. Mosquitoes, I'm not a fan. I know they need to exist and all, but I'm not a fan. Free us from political influencing, says Ariel. I concur. Free us from political influencing. Bloodnose, hi, good to see you, man. Bloodnose, Netanyahu told Congress that there were no civilian casualties of this war except for one. This is an obvious lie, which is breaking of one of the commandments. Well, like I said, I don't really follow. I didn't listen to the speech. I heard it's very good, but I know Netanyahu. He's a wonderful speaker, a great speaker. Really. I need him to not speak. I need him to act as well, and he is, and we need him to end this war one way or another and vacate the seat. Vacate. For who? I'm not sure, but I do believe, needs to go. As for lying, politicians lie. Politicians lie. This is nothing new. Some politicians also tell the truth. There's a good chance he did some of both. A little column A, a little column B. No civilian casualties, I find that hard to believe. Are you sure you're not paraphrasing? You're quoting him verbatim? No civilian casualties? Well, I will say, if he considers certain casualties who were technically civilian but actually harboring fugitives, let's say, and holding them hostage, that's a complicit civilian. And I'll leave it at that. Are the Druze Israeli citizens? Now, as far as I know, right, the Golan Heights, the whole thing, It is part of Israel. It's not part of Israel. It has been annexed. It's not annexed. It's occupied. It's not occupied. Beautiful country. I was lucky enough to serve there for a short while on the border, Syria and Lebanon. So are the Druze Israeli citizens? I believe that the ones in the borders of Israel are. Others are Israeli citizens who also have a special agreement, let's say, to hold a Syrian passport. You crazy? You darn right I am. I'm very, very crazy. Happy to be so. Thankfully, I'm still losing my marbles every day. Just a bit. Okay. Kyle says, true, we are pretty self-centered. Listen, if you have consciousness, you're going to be self-centered. You don't have to make it about your entire identity about that, but you are definitely going to have self-centered mannerisms and introspection, right? Some people have a disorder or some sort of condition when they don't have images in their head, right? Or they don't have certain connections are missing, or they don't have like a visual representation. If I'm not mistaken, there's some kind of a condition like that. I don't remember the name. Right? They can't think in images. Something like that. Bebob said, Allah granted Muhammad every whim. Allah would change rules overnight to accommodate Muhammad's lusts. Well, here's the thing. Right, in the Hebrew Bible, we see God, let's say, a revelation of God that is wrathful and very, judgmental and angry, that wants to smite the people of Israel and start a new people with Moses. And Moses then says, whoa, hold your horses there, Lord. Remember this, remember that. What about that? What about this name? What about that name? And in doing so, Moses reveals new ways of bringing balance to the world. So God, a revelation of God, that is one of anger, and Moses counters it with goodness, right, with the right hand, or rather with the balancing in the middle, the left and the right, bringing it to a balance. And then God is, let's say, appeased, right? There is a revelation of God which says, okay, we're going to keep doing the thing. Let's keep doing the thing. What we were doing before, let's keep doing that. So that would be God changing rules, changing divine will, a revelation of divine will in anger, in the form of anger, right? The left hand, judgment, and Moses, the great bridge, being able to push it back into balance, to sort of, right, to push back against it and reveal new ways of bringing balance to the world. Giving into Moses' words, right? There was divine speech, there was Moses' speech, and there was a balance. So I don't know about every whim, since I don't know the Islamic texts, but I think that the fact that Allah would change rules overnight to accommodate Muhammad is something that has its precedences, albeit very different, in the Hebrew Bible, in the 5 books of Moses. So I get that. Numbers 6:4 cannot eat the leaves. What do you mean? Let's go with the JPS Tanakh on this. Maka? Okay. Okay. Wait, I don't understand. You were saying it's what? Numbers 6:4. All right, Bamidbar. Let's go. No, you know what? I'll do the JPS version. The JPS Tanakh. Yeah. I'll do the JPS version in English. I was going to do it in Hebrew. Okay. All the days of his Nazarite-ship shall he eat nothing that is made of the grapevine, from the pressed grapes even to the grape stone. Yes, but the Rambam, let's see. Nothing that is made of the grapevine. Mi gefen hayayin. Gefen is the actual fruit. So that's one translation. Hold on a sec. Let's see it in Hebrew. במדבר פרק ו' כל ימי נזרו מכל אשר יעשה מגפן היין Right, migefin hayayin. It's the fruit. That specific translation is not the precise Hebrew. It's close, but it's not the precise Hebrew. The geffen, right, can be the actual fruit. If I'm not mistaken, the Rambam, Maimonides, and other halachic scholars, although it may be a machloket, a dispute, but I'm pretty sure the leaves are allowed for a Nazarite. Wait, where was I? Did it jump? No. Wait, the Talmud calls the Yeshua HaMashiach a fool's shoteh. Yes, the Talmud references Yeshu HaNotzri several times, but from what I have learned, and I haven't done the research myself, scholars and historians and others, they say that it still is you're unable to ascertain whether or not that was the actual Yeshu HaNotzri, Jesus of Nazareth, which is referenced there. I know that it makes sense that it would be, right? The Talmud was after the times of the Mishnah, the Second Temple era was the times of the Mishnah. Christianity, the early churches, they were already starting to gather a lot of followers, presumably, and the Talmud was sealed in the 3rd century, if I'm not mistaken. Or is it the 4th? So, around there. So, Yeshua HaMashiach a fool. Well, they don't call him HaMashiach there, I'm sure. I'm sure they call him Yeshua HaNotzri, and they don't call him Yeshua, they call him Yeshu, without the Ayin. And again, it's not necessarily him, but different things are said about Yeshu HaNotzri of one type or another in the Talmud. And it makes sense that if they are talking about the Jesus, the Christian Jesus, let's say, that they would be saying that he went astray and that he is a fool. Now, one of the things that happened after the prophecy was sort of taken away at the destruction of the Second Temple is that prophecy was given to children and fools. And it would be the Talmud inadvertently saying that Jesus could potentially be a prophet. Right? Iladim v'shotim. Hey, Pinky Winky. Bloodnose says, the problem with Christianity is people are in charge, making wrong decisions without Jesus being here. Well, isn't the entire idea of Christianity the idea of the second coming? Or rather, that's not the whole idea, but that's definitely a kind of end game thing, right? The second coming, judgment day, that whole thing. So I don't know what you mean with Christianity and Jesus being here. I know that Christians say that they accept Jesus as, Lord, Savior, Son of God, whatever it may be, Anointed One, King of Kings, depending on the sect or group or denomination. The problem is people are in charge. Well, it's a religion. In a religion, people are in charge. Now, they can be benevolent or they can be malevolent, and it can be a very good thing, it can be a very bad thing. It can be so awesome, and yet it can corrupt so horribly. There's nothing that people won't do in the name of God. Okay. So it's not the problem with, I obviously, Blood knows you see it as a problem with Christianity. I see it as a problem with organized religion. The thing is, you ought not throw the baby out with the bathwater, because organized religion, despite all its faults, and I'm talking about rabbinic Judaism, right, because that's the organized religion I am most familiar with. The problem, let's say, if we were to take it with that, the problem with rabbinic Judaism, all right, I'm paraphrasing your Blood Nose quote there, is people are in charge, making wrong decisions without the Anointed One being here. So we currently don't have a king. We don't have an Anointed One. We have a few people who are in the running. We have a few people who we have a few people who are claiming to be Mashiach, claiming to be Messiah, and who are actually asking the people to anoint them and to embrace their kingship and accept their crown. So people being in charge, however, is something which, with the destruction of the Second Temple for sure, and even before that, certain parts of the Torah were given for mankind, Jewish, Hebrew folk, to interpret. The people of Israel, we are meant to be participating in this game of creation. And that means Torah and commandments are things which, to some degree, are under our, right? They are left to our discretion. There are certain ways of interpreting the Torah. There are certain oral traditions that are not in the written Torah, and so on and so forth. Meaning that the Torah, and I'm again referencing rabbinic Judaism here, right? The Orthodox Judaism, it completes each other. You can't have the oral without the written, and you can't have the written without the oral. And the fact that the oral Torah had to be written down is a great travesty and a calamity. It's really bad, but it had to be done. It had to be done in order to conserve the Hebrew faith. We knew we were heading into exile, and they had to keep the oral traditions alive. There was a great concern that it would be forgotten, and it very well could have been forgotten over the many ages. So, the writing down the oral law, the Talmud, the Mishnah, that was not a good thing, but it had to be done. Yodidiahu says, the Talmud is full of hatred against Yeshua, the Jew, and his followers. They're called min, yes, apostates. Minim, minut. I forgot what minut meant when I read it, right? The kingship will become an apostasy. That's what minut means, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Now, once again, I only read the New Testament once, and I saw how Jesus is portrayed in the gospel, and I saw how others speak in his name afterwards, which is why there was a clear break for me between the gospel and the rest of the book, and how I received it, if you will, and how I read it, because I can glean wisdom out of it, even if not faith, because it's not a book, it's not a holy book as far as I'm concerned, it's not a Bible as far as I'm concerned, but it's a book that nevertheless has teachings that I perhaps can learn from. So as full of hatred, the Talmud is problematic. The Talmud is problematic because of the lack of a temple, and because of the fact that halacha had to be written down and made into that narrow path, which is a very blessed and wonderful path, but it's also very narrow. And it was made as a sort of mainstream road for the people of Israel to follow. Halakha means to walking, right? To return, to walk with God, to walk with the Torah, to walk with the commandments. That's halakha. So the Talmud came at a point where Israel did not have the temple. Things were so bad that halakha had to be made, as such, and the different traditions sort of went behind the curtain, and only halakha remained as the viable, codified Jewish law, as far as I know. Other sects, of course, do still exist, but I don't think that they are as large in number as the rabbinic Judaism, Orthodox Judaism. So it's full of hatred, and it's full of things that are wrong, right? Like scientifically wrong. Now, here's the other thing. By the way, here's the other thing. The Talmud does have a kind of sacred element to it, insofar as it's written down oral Torah. And despite its hate-filled husk, right? Its hate-filled literary manifestation, right? The actual written words on the page of the Gemara, on the page of the Talmud. The source has divine revelation. The source is of divine revelation. The source is something which is, I think, it doesn't hate. By the time it comes down here into this narrow world of good and evil, into a world of exile, into a world without a temple, into a world where the Sanhedrin is no longer there, or it might not be there pretty soon. As far as I know, the Sanhedrin was disbanded, right? Along with, there were yeshivas, obviously, and things in Bavel and in different locations, but it wasn't the same as having a high court. It wasn't the same as having the elders. Excuse me, guys. Well, please be more considerate, both of you. Of each other, I mean. So yes, the hate-filled parts of the Talmud, and I don't deny that they are there. The, let's say, not as good parts, that's the physical revelation of it as, words on paper, but it has a spiritual root. And the spiritual root and what it means, let's say, in the spiritual realms, the way that the Hebrew letters are making connections, and the way that halakha is making compromises in the physical world here, and this is allowed and this is not, right? This is kosher and this is unkosher. This is pure and impure, clean and unclean. Those dualities where it pertains to this world. In the spiritual worlds, that duality does not exist. And so even though the Talmud has a kind of exile element to it, which is bad, hate-filled, right? Destruction, woe. right? Hatred of Yeshu, says Yodidiahu. That's why it's there. I'm not justifying it. I'm saying that that's why it's there. It's because as the generations came down, and as bad things continued to happen to the Hebrew people, it came to a head, right? And Rome burned down the temple, and the oral tradition had to be written down. This is something that was not allowed. The oral tradition was meant to be oral, was meant to be from master to apprentice, from father to son, from mother to daughter, and so on and so forth. Right? Whatever. So it's problematic. But I do believe that what comes here into the world as the Talmud does have a lot of work, let's say. It does a lot of work. When you learn it, when you study it, in the spiritual realms and in the physical realms, because when you know halacha, when you know right from wrong insofar as Rabbinic Orthodox Judaism is concerned, then you have a straight path before you. Then you have a reference. And you can argue over the nature of that man-made religion. You can argue over the nature of halacha, why it had to be written down. Well, I've been on for an hour. I give thanks. At this juncture, I will just say I give thanks to the Most High and to each and every one of you. This is so much fun. I am really enjoying myself. It's so nice to be here with you Sunday night, live from Jerusalem. I take such pleasure in this. It enlivens me. Again, I get to think, I get to learn, I get to wrestle with ideas with you guys. It's lovely, it's wonderful, and I thank you for being a part of it. Those watching now, those watching later, every sub, every like, every chat, every comment, every little thing is really genuinely appreciated. Let's be honest, says Kyle, the Abrahamic God, Christian, Muslim, Jew, is extremely authoritarian, and therefore the religions are authoritarian by nature. I'm inclined to agree. There's a great revelation of authority, right, and of thou shalt and thou shalt not in the Torah. That is very much the case. And the human part of it, insofar as halacha is concerned, also does that, right, that duality. And I agree. As a man-made religion trying to convey these spiritual principles, there are times when the religion misses the mark. And we see that in how it manifests and actually expresses itself in the world. It doesn't mean that the root is bad. It means that some fruit on the tree are not as ripe as they ought to be, but the tree itself is good, and the fruit is abundant. And most of them are A-OK, sweet and crunchy and whatever it is you want it to be. Talmud says more than I could ever learn. Well, you mean it says more than you can ever learn about being in the world, or actually learning the Shas, the Shishas Darim, Mishnah, Talmud, all of the tractates? Because definitely you can learn it. Some people learn the Talmud several times, Bavli and Yerushalmi. When people put their minds to things, especially good learned people who know how to steigen, right, they can do a lot. Right, how to study, how to hunker down and learn. I haven't touched Talmud in many years, and in yeshiva it was the thing I think I put the least emphasis on, actually. I put an emphasis on it to be sure, I studied it every day, but the emphasis insofar as what was calling to me, right? It was more of Kook, it was more, well, other things. Rav Kook, Harav Harashi Rishon L'Israel. In the Talmud, 4 of Yeshua's followers were executed by the Jews. Wow, I find that hard to believe, and yet not. Again, considering what I just said about the Talmud. Can you please provide a source? I'd love to read it in the original Aramaic. Never read that before, for example, Ariel, right? That Talmud says more than I could ever learn. Never read that before, for example. I'm not sure what you gave as an example. Did I miss a comment? I'm not sure. I'm sorry, maybe say it again. Let's continue here. The context of the Talmud must be for the time it was written or during the 1st century. So no, Mishnah is the 1st century. Today, someone calls us a fool, it's nothing. Back then, it was a major derogatory meaning. Yahweh continues, there's also a story in the Talmud that when a Jew hits a Christian, the Christian should turn his other cheek. And when a Jewish man tells a Christian, come with me 1 mile, the Christian will say, I'll go 2 miles, as the teachings of Yeshua. I'd love it if you would give me sources, man. Give me which Masechet, which Daf, which Amud, right? Which tractate, which page, which oh, come on, what is it? Amud. Which column? Page and column. I'll go to, Bebop says, trivia. Muslims say they respect all the prophets, but when asked if they also respect the female prophets, they deny that there ever were female prophets. Quite amusing. Oh, I had no idea. That's funny. So Dvorah, Huldah, Sarah. Yaman. Where? I don't sense anything out of the ordinary. You're good. Oi, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh yeah, that's not good. All right, let's continue. Did you leave Netherlands? Hello, V. Yes, I did. I left the Netherlands 3 years ago, almost to the day. 3 years ago. And then it was three years in the Netherlands, and now we've been here 3 years since we came back. So wow. Yes, I did leave the Netherlands. We were there for a short period of time.
God, we were leaving 6 years ago.
Yes, we left for the Netherlands 6 years ago in 3 days. In 3 days, it's six years since we left. What a trip. Pretty sure we are not supposed to hit Christians, LOL. Right, I would think so too. Yudidiao never knew that, says Robert. Yudidiao continues. Do you agree the Talmud is extremely anti-Yeshua and anti-Christian? Okay, so I gave my opinion on that with the previous comments. Even someone called Yeshu burning in his own poop. So yes, the boiling excrement. I gave my thoughts on that in the previous live stream last week.
Huh?
Yeah, that's right. I think that female respect often gets categorized differently, says Ariel, according to culture and beliefs. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Jesse says shalom to you. Oh my God, did I even get to I saw your username now, and it reminded me that I didn't even finish the live stream from Thursday. We got all carried away here, and I didn't. There's a lot here. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow if I don't do it now.
You're back.
Pardon me? What, Paul? I have a lot to go. So shalom, Jesse. Shalom to you. I'm sorry I didn't get to your chat from from Thursday yet. I need to do Thursdays. Colonialism, said Draco. Are they referring to the Ottomans? The Ottoman Empire? Of course. They're before the British. Ariel Marshall says, if I was a cat, I would design a transforming portable box to walk around in like a tortoise. If frogs had wings, continues Ariel, they would not bump their bottoms when they land. My dad's saying, credit where it's due. I know it from Wayne's World. That if a frog had legs, he wouldn't bump his ass when he hopped. Cassandra tells it to Wayne. That's funny. To which he replies, where did you learn English? And she says, college. In the Police Academy movies. Right? I think she says Police Academy movie. JJ, message retracted. Aw, come on, give us the good word, JJ. What's up? What's up? Is Silent Bob also coming here? Jesse says, Yod He Vav He meaning mercy. Yes, that is the name of balance and mercy. It's a very root name. Big prepper. All right, now are you a doomsday prepper? Are you more of a mental prepper? How far has your prepping? Do you have a bunker? Do you have an arsenal? Do you have a Rubik's Cube? You could use it down there. Yeah. Do tell me before I read, I'm going to read it now, after I read your comment. Big prepper. There is a video going around of Orthodox Jews being asked about a prophecy. The Messiah will come. Non-Jews will serve the Jews. A great war will come and the world will return to its ancient ways. What do you say to this? I say that prophecies are only prophecies, meaning that they can come to pass and not come to pass. It's not, I don't see things as, it says, right? It says that not that they will serve the Jews. It says that the nations will come to the Hebrews and say, teach us your ways. And I see that not as an end, it's only a means to an end, because I don't think that the Jews, Hebrews, Israelites, I don't think the 12 tribes are better than any other human nation, right? I think that if Messiah will come and we will be able to crown a king in Israel, I think it means that he will rally the people of Israel in such a way, and the light, let's say, that we are trying to build here will shine so bright that people of their own accord will come and see, hey, there's wisdom here, show us your ways. And that's not to say that there won't be other nations, other cultures, other faiths, other religions, but it will be a kind of coming together. And then following that, as I see it, right, a coming together of all of us as a human race in spirituality, eventually forsaking religion, the man-made elements of spirituality, right, and of ritual worship, and being, right, and partaking of the fruit of the tree of life. That's the world returning to its ancient ways, right? The way is the 7 days of creation, only there was no seventh day yet. That is the most ancient of ways. That's the way, right? Fruit of the tree of life was put under guard, but never forbidden. Not before the tree of knowledge of good and evil, nor after. Not while we were in Eden, nor after the expulsion. It's there. The path is there. And if we can just get our act together, those guards will become guides. You know what I'm saying? So the world returning... No, I'm saying... So the world returning to its ancient ways, that will be, as I see it, together. There won't be nations in Israel. There won't be Jews and non-Jews. We will finally be able to be an Edenic humanity. That's what I say to this. The Talmud says, Yodidiahu says, Yeshua the Christian was hung on the eve of Pesach. They took out his eye. Yeesh. They never took his eye out, says Robert. Would you ever in the near future read the Gospels again or never? No, definitely never say never. Because like I said, there's wisdom there, even if there's no faith for me to take. There's no faith, but there is wisdom. And I could use wisdom in my own ways. Do you believe the Zohar is holy? Good question. Yes. I believe it's holy in the very basic, technical, set apart. The Zohar is a book that is set apart from many, many, many other books. And there is a root element to the Zohar that, if we're speaking of tree of knowledge of good and evil, of duality, right? Torah shebichtav, Torah shebe'al peh, written Torah, oral Torah. The Zohar, it has that root element to it. Love you. Right, the first letter of the written Torah is Bereshit, Bet. The first word is Bereshit, right? In the beginning of. In Reshit, in beginnings, in beginning of. The Bet is open, right, to the continuation of the Torah, and there's a little tail to the Bet, pointing backwards. A small sort of pointing to the back. The Zohar deals primarily with what goes on in the back of that Bet. What is the Bet of Bereshit, of in the beginning, of Bereshit? What is it pointing back towards? If you look at the Hebrew Bet, and you'll see that it's really wide open, and a tiny thing pointing backwards, saying, pay attention, this isn't the first. There's an Aleph before the Bet. And the Zohar to me represents that Aleph. I set it apart like many others who have set it apart. And I do believe it's holy in that sense. Did you read the New Testament in Hebrew? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I read it in a nice biblical Hebrew. Robert Harrison says, if the temple comes back, will modern Judaism be dropped and ancient Judaism come back? Well, if the temple comes back, the kingdom comes back, the high courts come back, modern-day Judaism will not exist because it will be certain things that were, certain prohibitions that were made will be, and will end, right? Certain differences of opinion, of halacha, will be able to amend them, will be able to go back and properly rule halacha. All we have now is halachic rulers who are working off the remnants of, right, Mishnah, Talmud. But ever since the destruction of the temple, and ever since the Sanhedrin was disbanded and the high court was basically taken out, then you don't have, we can no longer make or break the oral traditions. We have to make do with what was left to us in the Mishnah and in the Talmud. But we see the Mishnah and the Talmud are filled with controversy and difference of opinion, and trying to get down to what it means to go by halacha, because there were opinions and traditions abound. And until the need to write down halacha for the people, the masses, the public, the nation, those other traditions, those other ways were tolerated and celebrated, as far as I know. So ancient Judaism as such, yes, an ancient Hebrew way, not Jewish, of the tribe of Judah or of the kingdom of Judah or of Judea, the location, but, right, the 12 tribes together, like Ezekiel with the 2 pieces of wood, that they will become one, right, and there will be one king. Draco says, true Christians can never be anti-Semites. The apostles were all Jews. How to explain Isaiah chapter 53? It is clearly speaking of Jesus. Well, obviously, to somebody who is a follower of Yeshua, you see Jesus everywhere. Christians see Jesus from that initial bet. What is it pointing back to? It's pointing back to Jesus. I'm not even kidding. Right there from the beginning, in Eden, from the beginning, all the way through until the Christian book of Revelation, and afterwards. So, being that that is the case, how do I explain it? I can explain it in the Hebrew context, right? Of the sages who chose to leave this particular prophecy and canonize it in the book of Isaiah. It's speaking not necessarily of Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah. So if you want to take a few verses and say, oh, it's speaking of Jesus, okay. It's clear to you it's speaking of Jesus. It's clear to me that it's speaking to people. To people, of people. It's trying to show us something about the nature of our time here and what we are meant to do here as individuals and as a people. That's why it was kept. Not all of Isaiah's prophecies were kept. The ones which our sages deemed necessary, worthy, that it's proper and that they ought to canonize them and have future generations read them, learn from them, implement certain change in their life, figure out where it meets them. Where are they in this prophecy? Right? Because we know there are no commandments in the books of prophets. There are no commandments. The commandments are in the Torah. Which means that it's there to teach us something about the way we ought to be carrying ourselves, right? And carrying out commandments here and now. What is the covenant? Right? The prophets were able to convey the word of God. That's what Navi, Niv, from speech. That's what a prophet is. So if you say it's clearly speaking of Jesus, I'm not going to say, no, it's blah, 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 blah. I'm going to say, okay, you think it speaks of Jesus? Good for you. Go with that. It very clearly is not speaking of Jesus to me. Ariel says, in regards to oral teachings, it is rational to assume that some Torah will never be written down. Yes, obviously, some Torah is still only carried on from master to apprentice. We mentioned the Zohar, right? And people speak of Kabbalah, and people speak of the mystic Judaism, the hidden Judaism, right? Or Chokhmat HaEmet, the knowledge of truth, as it's known. Or Chen Chokhmat HaNistar, the hidden wisdom. Everything that has ever been written in Kabbalah, across the board, were things that were allowed to be written in their own time and place. For instance, certain things were only written, speaking of the Zohar, on the day of Rabbi Shimon dying, on the day of Lamed Gimel Ba'omer, of the 33rd day of the Omer. So, things of that nature, right? Certain times carried out certain revelations, in keeping with the generations and the hierarchy and the chain of the generations coming down. So yes, there will be some Torah that will never be written down. It's all oral. Yod Hei Vav Hei is king. Sanhedrin 43a 23. So I'm not sure what to do right now. I think I'm going to put that. You know what? I'll read it in Sepharia. Line 23. Wait, I don't see 23. Hang on. No, but this is I want the proper. Okay, let's see. Hang on a second. Sanhedrin. Okay, I'll have to read that later. I'm not going to read it right here in Aramaic and waste your time, but I will read it, definitely. Muhammad XP, shalom to you. Salam alaikum. Thank you for the source, by the way, Odidio. I appreciate it. Thank you for the answer, says Big Prepper. I do not have a bunker. It became a nuclear war. I do not wish to live through it. If it comes, right, to nuclear war, he doesn't want to live through it. But any other circumstance, I'm prepared for 100% self-sufficient. Good for you. That is quite a feat. I mean, where do you see this happening? You're prepping, right, as far as you're concerned, for the inevitable, kind of. And when do you see that happening? I'm curious. Are you prepping for a specific scenario? Because you say nuclear war is something you wouldn't want to live through. Other circumstances, what is it in your mind's eye, Big Prepper? I'm curious. Also, Big Prepper, makes some sense that you would have a channel of your own. So I'm going to just I'm going to try and check that out. Hang on a second. Oh. Hang on. Big prepper. I'm assuming you're not the only one. Oh, but there you are. Big prepper, you do have a channel? Okay. Let's see. I'm curious now. So you have a few videos from 8 years ago. So what? Why did you stop making videos? You only made a few. Bloodnose says, who are claiming to be the king of Israel? Is this a common thing? Yes, there is Jerusalem syndrome, where people come to Yerushalayim and they develop a condition and they do think that they are the Messiah. And it's a real condition, Jerusalem syndrome. Yeah, look it up. I mean, I don't know if it's in the DSM, but it's definitely a real thing, referred to as a real condition. I don't know if that's the proper name. I don't know if it's in the DSM-5, but it is a condition, like a known thing. As for people claiming to be the king of Israel, yes, they have posters up. Ani Melech HaMashiach, I am the King Messiah, right? Basically saying, come, follow me, join me. At any given time in a generation, you have a few people, and in Israel, you do have a few. You do have a few. In fact, in a recent live stream a month ago, there was a flyer in my mailbox, advertising, right, calling out rather, doing marketing for this, for the Messiah. Oh, what was the rabbi's name? Anyway, a rabbi, a well-known rabbi who says that he's the Messiah.
Was that Jerusalem syndrome?
No, he's not a foreigner. He grew up in Orthodox Judaism. He's a rabbi, an Orthodox rabbi.
And you called?
Pardon?
Did you call the number?
I did not. Robert says, so yeah, it is a common thing. Not every, you can't, it's not like, well, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting someone claiming to be Messiah. No, but it does exist all the time. Like that. Robert Harrison says, because ancient Torah in Judaism says blood atones for sin, now it says prayer atone. Yes, our lips will be instead of the ox, instead of the bulls. Can you sing that old song, Make 'em Laugh? No, I can't. I don't know the words. I only saw Singing in the Rain twice, and to my great shame, I don't have the soundtrack. It's not a soundtrack I regularly listen to, and I really should. You want this? There you go. Navi, we are coming. No, that is Navi, the plural future tense. We will bring, all right, we will, but no, Navi is from Niv, Nun Yud Bet. Niv means tongue or speech or language or dialect, depending on the, you're right there, dude, depending on the context. What is Daniel eating? What were you eating? Salad? He was eating a tuna salad, I say?
No, salad.
Oh, just a salad. A salad. Yudidiao says, Todachi. Taylor says, just saw there is a few Israeli drones near the Beirut airport. Uh-oh. Trouble a brewing. Oh, got distracted, LOL, said Sneezer. Hi, Sneezer. What I miss? Well, you missed quite a lot. I've been on for an hour and 23 minutes now. What loke, what fun. Ezekif. Ezekif. Pardon? Bloodnose says, Jesus said bread is his body and wine is his blood. I often think of him when I eat and drink. Well, I think if you're a Christian or you follow Yeshua, you definitely should be doing that. That idea of what is it that I am doing now? I am eating, right? I am sustaining myself, not just to put the clothes on the circuitry reward of consuming, right? Of I needed to survive and now I'm better, now I'm full. No, it's something which strengthens me. It's something which gives me energy, not just to survive, but to do something with my wretched and miserable self. Huh? So when Christians, let's say, when they tell me that, bread and wine, I'm like, yeah, it definitely makes sense that it would kind of be a sacrament. And it definitely makes sense when you say that when you eat and drink, you think of him. I see, what do you think, says Robert. Didn't David Koresh actually visit Israel? Well, somebody, I'm not sure. It makes sense. That was quite a cult he was running there, huh? What was that, Waco, Texas, right? Is that what I'm thinking of? The Davidians? What am I thinking of something else? I might be confusing my cults. Somebody educate me, enlighten me, I'm ignorant. Anybody claiming to be the only Messiah is false. True Messiah, everyone will one day be bringing the world to peace. Isn't something one person does. It's something we all do together. Hey, that I can get behind, Sneezer. I definitely want it to be something that we are bringing together. I mean, living in the Middle East and with this war going on, always a state of emergency, always trauma, post-trauma, intergenerational horrors, always. I don't know how it's going to come about. Ik weet dat niet. I know that not. How many times a day does Pinky daven? Well, here's the thing. It's said in the external teachings that to every creation, right? How many times a day does Pinky pray? Asks Robert. There is a teaching in the Midrash that says that all of creation is constantly praising Adonai. And the different verses change according to the weekday, according to or weekend, right? Shabbos, according to the different time of year, according to what it is that is coming down, let's say, from the higher realms, from the spiritual realms. Then as an answer to that, if you will, or a response, there is a revelation of praise or of news which travels through the animal kingdom. And that's what we hear, right? The bellowing of the beasts and the tweeting of the birds and the buzzing of the bees, and that all has all the different calls, all the different sounds, the animal noises. It's said that it's all a sort of praise, right? Whether it's a certain verse. So she davens all the time. Perhaps apart from the time when she's going number 2. Or maybe even then, because she's just an animal. Here she is, that's right, Pinky is there. Who's a good girl? So how many times a day? She does not stop praying, pretty much. Favorite story in the Bible? Eden. I can't escape it. I can't escape it. I have, for better or worse, sort of intertwined myself, going all in, kind of, or at least to some degree, on this Edenic thing. It helps to guide me. It really does. It's such a root story. So that's my favorite story in the Bible. Eden, right? Oh, well, let's see if we have any questions. Thank you. Nope, no other questions. So, okay, you know what?
Oh, that's cool.
No other questions, so let's not end the Q&A. Let's keep going with the live chat. Uh-oh, where was I? Oh, no, you're 100% correct. Oh, thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it. This discussion is beautiful. Thank you, my friends. Blood knows. Hey, you're making it happen. All of you guys out there, guys and gals, making it happen. It is, I agree, so lovely. It has its less beautiful sides because of the nature of the times and the nature of the fact that we're discussing religion but the discussion itself, as far as I'm concerned, it's relatively civil, enriching, enlightening, and I deeply appreciate everybody who participates, who contributes. Thank you, my friends, indeed. I share that sentiment. It takes both sides agreeing neither is innocent and to try harder, said Sneezer. How are you so calm despite the current situation, asks Taylor. It's simply part of my personality. Even when I was in the reserves and on the different borders, even in mandatory service, going through different things, I managed to stay calm. That's part of what made me an okay medic, in my opinion. Right? During my time in the Army, I was a field medic and an infirmary medic, and I was able to remain calm, basically, throughout the whole thing. And times, obviously, when pressure rises, but I'm able to stay calm always, because, I got my brothers and sisters around me doing our thing. As for a civilian here in Jerusalem, I'm used to it. We are always at war. We are always in a state of emergency. We are always under existential, moral threat, right, and peril. Always. Always. We manage to live life because that's the way of the Torah, that's the way of the Hebrews, that's the way of humans. To survive and to flourish and to thrive is what we want to do. So we go do that. But the war is just terrible on all sides. And I'm able to keep calm because I have my routine, because I haven't been called back yet from my retirement into the Army. And I have, I have me, my family, I have this right here that helps to ground me. And I'm calm because right now the IDF is doing its job, police are doing their job, Border Patrol are doing their job, Shin Bet are doing their job, Mossad is doing its job, the intelligence is doing its job, and there is no siren right now. There are no rockets heading here right now. 3 seconds later, no. Right now I can afford to do this. If a siren starts, I leave this and run to a safe space with my family.
But do you keep it alive on?
Would I keep the live on? Maybe, yeah. Why not? You never know what you're going to capture. I'm praying for Israel daily. Thank you, Jesse. We appreciate the prayers. I appreciate the prayers. Pray for peace. More than just Israel. Pray for peace, but deeply appreciated. Taylor 26 says, I don't even live in Israel, and yet I am stressed out about it. Yeah, that's the case. We're always stressed about something here. It's intolerable, and yet just enough, right? It's just tolerable enough to maintain some resemblance to a normal life.
You should tell Pinky.
Kyle, I will. Thank you. I know. Thank you. I appreciate that. The suggestion. Oh, come on, man. Here, take that. So does the IDF have a solution for the Hamas tunnels? I have no idea. I haven't been in the IDF in a few years already, so I have no idea. And even if I were, why, I'm just a lowly soldier, and I don't, they don't reveal that information to me. I'm on a need-to-know basis here, and I do not need to know. Even mathematics has Yud Hey Vav Hey deeply fundamental inside. I agree. There are a lot of different mathematical things to do with gematria, things to do with, yes, and with the tree of life, because right, Yod Hey Vav Hey represents the tree of life from top to bottom. So Nezer says to Kyle, of course, if they stop funding Hamas, they will stop building tunnels. Draco says, so you believe Isaiah's prophecy in chapter 53 is speaking to Israel and not about the Messiah. If it is speaking to someone, it's speaking to a leader who is beaten down. And I'm willing to say definitely Jesus could have been Messiah. He could have been the king. He could have been a prophet. However, he's dead, so he isn't. Simply by virtue of his death, if you will, right? Because of the cause of his death, because he was actually dead and remains dead as far as I'm concerned. Many people disagree with me. That's fair enough. But that's where I see that ending. And so if Isaiah 53 was kept and canonized and left into the Hebrew Bible, it means that it's not necessarily about the Messiah, a Messiah. It can be about a king or a leader. It can be about a king, or rather a leader that is not anointed. Or if it's anointed, it's not the Messiah, the final Messiah. It's like you can look at it in different ways. But yes, chapter 53 is speaking to Israel about the state, not the country, state, right? The state of Israel. That's what that's as far as I'm concerned what 53 is speaking of there. So was the letter Vav originally a W, a wow, right? Like the Arabic wow. Well, yes, if I'm not mistaken, it was. And again, with the generations, coming down through the generations, Vav became V, but it definitely could have been a W. And in Yemenite, if I'm not mistaken, right, it's still a W. I have no idea, my man. So Neither says, Jesse, some would have pronounced it differently, yes. Right, yeah, the wow, the Vav. Tips on staying calm in stressful situations, or is it just your personality? Yeah, it's basically my personality. I'm not saying I never got stressed, but yeah.
I've never seen you get stressed.
Pardon?
I've never seen you get stressed.
Really? Nah, it happens. It happens. Kyle says, got any medic stories from the field? Well, there's one which I tell because I wonder about it every now and then. When I was working in an infirmary and not in a forward, right, not at the border and not in any zone where combat might take place, right? I was in an infirmary, and the thing is that we weren't just providing medical services, emergency medical services to the people on the base, to the soldiers on the base, and the officers. We were also providing sort of a peripheral medical response to civilian things which happened as well in our vicinity. And so I I was at several civilian car accidents, right, motor vehicle accidents, and there was one that we arrived at and we were first there on the scene, and somebody there, I was told later she was okay. The reason I'm telling the story, if she was not okay, I wouldn't tell it. She basically had a crack on her forehead, right? A crack really, really deep. You could kind of see brain there.
Oh, you never told me that.
And, and we rushed her. Magen David Adom showed up immediately after we did, when we already, or a few minutes after we did. We gave the patients, the wounded, that is, to them, and they got them to the hospital. And later on, I asked. The reason I asked is because the way that the young woman who I was treating there, I mean, there were a few. It was like 3, maybe 4 people. The young lady that I was attending to, right? We were a team of medics and a doctor. The young lady that I was attending to, I called her Harry Potter, not to her face right then. Many days later, when I asked how she was doing, because it seemed to me that if she were to make a full recovery, that her wound would heal like a lightning scar on her forehead. And I was told later she was okay. Now, I didn't ask, does she have a lightning scar? But I sort of carry that story with me. I wonder, maybe she did something about it. I wouldn't want her to feel self-conscious and be, not pleasant to look at or whatever. I wouldn't want it to make her features ugly. But to have like a Harry Potter scar, I often wondered if that's how the wound mended. Yeah. Wait, hold on. So, no, just one will do. Sneezer says, are you wearing a Rorschach test? No, this is actually this is a shirt back in the Netherlands. Speaking of the Netherlands, right? Back in the Netherlands, my woman was a lot more into makeup, and she did all kinds of special effects and crazy looks, and she is a skilled makeup artist, really. And this is a shirt that she got from Jeffree Star, one of the mystery boxes, I think, that she ordered from Jeffree Star. We got this shirt, so I wear it as a kind of a pajama shirt. It's a Jeffree Star shirt. It says his name right here, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, it's the J, right? It's his emblem.
Isn't that your band's shirt?
No, I don't have a band. Are you wearing a? So I see a pentagrammed tattooed cow. That's interesting. What is a pentagram? I don't know what that is. Now, Sneezer says to Taylor, I would recommend focusing on what you can control. Focusing on what you can control is something that can help you remain calm. I agree. Taylor says to Sneezer, perhaps my observation of the conflict grants chi. Grants chi. I'm assuming you mean chi, right? Energy to the IDF soldiers. Sir smokes a lot. Hi, Sir smokes a lot. I hope you don't smoke a lot. Not good for you. I'm sorry, my brother. All war is against the will of God. I fear a life you have lived. I fear a life you have to live, and it breaks my hearts. I agree. Initially, if we're talking about Eden, war goes against the will of God. I agree. And I hope and pray we will be able to arrive together at a point where there will be peace, and God will pour his spirit upon all flesh, and there will be no war. Death will be taken away, evil will be taken away, adversaries will be taken away because of our merit, because we put in the hard work. And we'll finally be able to continue to humanity phase 2 as one. It is heartbreaking, and I appreciate your sentiment, I do. Sneezer says to Taylor, focus on fear to promote fear. I'd rather focus on peace. Yes, I agree. Taylor 26 says, Jesus is not the Messiah, but he is something else. This something else is hidden, but it is in the Bible. That's one way to look at it. Xi Jinping, come China. Come China? I should come to China? I don't know, man. I don't know. Are you extending a visit? Are you sending me a boarding pass? I'll consider it. I'd consider going to China. Not to live there or put roots there, but yeah, definitely. Sneezer gave verses from the New Testament to Taylor. I am on your side, said Taylor. Robert says, whatever people on here believe who Yeshua is, he changed the world. I agree, you can't argue with that. Christianity changed the world. Sir smokes a lot. Yeshua was truth. Right, what year is it? Jesus is a lie. Yeshua was truth. Jesus is a lie made by man. Can you explain to me how you see it? Do you see Yeshua as like a Hebrew man who was just following Torah? And you see Jesus as like a Christianized version of him? How do you see a difference there? I'm curious. What do you mean by Yeshua and what do you mean by Jesus? Usal, wow, Usal is in the house. Wow. Thank you for being here. I appreciate the flower emoji. Draco says, thank you for sharing your point of view. We should always be able to dialogue and respect each other, even if we disagree. As an American, we support Israel's right to exist. I appreciate that too. And I agree. There should always be dialogue. And if not dialogue, then come on. Just fish or cut bait, as they say. Mark being the more appropriate quote, said Sneezer, regarding Jesus and Messiah. Well, I thank you, good people, for sharing your points of view and for your contributions. I seriously love it. It's nice to do this. It's nice to do it consistently. Taylor 26, do you prefer the lunar calendar or the solar calendar, Nazarite? Well, I prefer, if I had to choose, I would go with a solar calendar, but the Hebrew calendar has both. So, yeah. So Neither says, Usal Muad Dib. Muad Dib? Not sure what that means. Could you translate? Pardon? No, not right now. Usal says, one of my aunts was born in China. They went to Hubei from Leipzig. Leipzig or Leipzig? Or is it Leipzig? Hubei. I don't like people saying Yeshua HaMashiach, says Taylor. Why? It doesn't sound as catchy when you stub your toe. Jesus Christ sounds better. Not aunt, second cousin, says Usal. Leipzig? How do you pronounce it? Robert says, do you remember the one follower you had on here that was a Nazarite who went offline into the wilderness to meditate in a shack by himself?
Oh my God, right.
It rings a bell. A shack. The shack rings a bell, but I don't remember. I don't remember the context, if it was a Hebrew Nazarite, or someone else who took the vow. Wasn't Usal Paul Maud Dib's name? Rak Akhbar Katan, a little mouse? Not sure what you mean, Usal. Taylor, Sneezer says to Taylor, LOL. Wow, okay, I've reached the end of this chat. I'll see if there are any questions. If there are no questions, I might call it quits, so there are no questions, or I might continue with the chat from Thursday that I never finished. No, you know what? Let's leave it at this. I will say, hopefully I'll see you tomorrow, 9 p.m. Israel time, live from Jerusalem. Ask me anything. I will hopefully continue the chat from last time, Thursday night, that I didn't get to do, because this one was so all-encompassing, so riveting, and I loved it. Oh, wait, so we have a few things. I'll continue. I'll read these couple of things, and then I smoke herb, no tobacco. Good for you. I've studied religion my entire life. Double good for you. Yeshua was trained by the Jewish to the point of rabbi status. Again, that is traditionally true. Egyptians, Buddhists, and brought with him internal truth. I'm inclined to agree with that. There is wisdom there. Leipzig, Germany, that's what I thought. Okay, I was like, Leipzig, that doesn't sound very Asian. The little mouse was for the Paul reference. I just wanted you to read it out. Thank you, brother. Stay safe. Love you guys. Indeed, much love to you all. Thank you for being here. Whether you were here for a second or, the entire hour and 43 minutes, whether you contributed or not, whether you just hopped on for a second and saw my face and went, ugh, and clicked off, or, whatever it is. I appreciate it. I love doing this. Let's do it again tomorrow. And I will continue the chat from Thursday, God willing. Thank you all. Thank you all. Good night from Jerusalem. God bless. Positivity, good vibes, peace, love, harmony.